We are weathering a slight amount of technical difficulty, folks. I am joined by Coop, and this is S-4, under the umbrella of Spaced Out Radio. Now, Eric Markham isn't here, and that bothers me because I love listening to Coop and Markham throw down and talk about all things paranormal and conspiratorial. And I don't think I could fill the shoes in quite the way that Markham has, but I do have my own take on things. And if you've heard me on The Quickening, just an average man trying to make sense of it all. And tonight our topic is, are aliens gods, and did they bring about religion? Now, Coop, you're weathering a blizzard out there, yep?
Yeah, that's what the technical difficulties were.
Mm-hmm. Well,
so, yeah, the Forest Moon headquarters internet crashed. So we are doing Plan B, and that is Seth's video. So, there we go.
And one way or the other, we'll bring it. One way or the other. Slight technical hiccups abound. Coop, just so you know what I'm going to be doing for anybody who's watching, if they have any questions of any sort whatsoever, I will read them off to you. So,
sounds good.
You had some things you wanted to discuss before we get started, right?
Yeah, slow. Yeah, here comes the snow again. All right, real quick, Forest Moon local members, don't forget on Friday, it's the second Friday of the month, which means we are doing paranormal discussion at the Lone Star Restaurant at 11 a.m. We have a few new members that I know are coming. They're excited. We have a new psychic we have to vet. Sure, I like the word psychic. We have a new medium we have to vet. So we'll see how that goes. And then on Saturday at 3 p.m. at the Concrete Community Center, we are doing paranormal protection. And we're covering herbs, stones, grounding, and shielding, which we did a lot of today at the case we were at. And so it's highly important. There was actually an attachment on one of the clients. And it's a very real situation for those that are investigators. And you got some investigators out there that I don't need no damn protection. But hey, I'm here to tell you, you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and on the 19th, there will be no show. On the 19th, we will be in Tacoma actually teaching a paranormal class at the Mystic Sanctuary. So we're going to cancel that show because it is actually a series of shows that we're going to be doing on ancient aliens.
Mm-hmm.
Which kind of goes along with tonight's topic. The ancient alien theory actually goes along with the lines of, well, aliens are the gods.
Oh, indeed it does. Indeed it does.
Yeah. And now, on that topic, if you look at, there's a lot of people that are going to be offended by tonight's topic because they're so wrapped up in religion. And religion teaches that you have to go to a building. No, actually, it doesn't really matter what religion you follow or what deity you follow. Your deity is with you everywhere you go, not in a damn building. If you want a perfect example, watch the movie Stigmata, which is actually based on the hidden books of Thomas, which is in the Vatican's, secret archives.
Mm-hmm.
But it's actually a book you can find at Barnes & Noble as well, although it's probably a watered-down edition of it. But actually, your deity is in the rocks and in the trees, and Stigmata kind of teaches you that.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's the way I always looked at it, and the big thing with religion and how this ties in is I've always had a theory that perhaps each different religion or dogma or whatever is kind of a test to see how we would treat each other. And what I want you guys to do, listening or watching, whether or not you're out in your yard, whether or not you're in your shed, whether or not you are in, wherever, I want you to close your eyes for a minute, and I want you to pay attention to your body. Pointy sticks abound. No, I'm not Eric. I'm not Eric. Joe Alligator says you don't look like Eric. No, I'm not Eric. There is no beard. I probably scared the hell out of a few people. But I want you guys to close your eyes.
Tell Joe to get the titanium pointing stick. We got to have the titanium pointing stick tonight.
The titanium pointy stick. All right, yeah. Titanium's required, boss. But what I'm getting at here is close your eyes and feel your pulse, okay? Whether or not you feel it at your carotid, whether or not you feel it in your wrist, whether or not you just reach up and touch your heart, feel your pulse and pay attention to your breathing for a minute. And I want you to think about all the processes your body goes through, your vision, your heart, your lungs, your breathing, the chemical reactions in your body, whether or not they're aerobic or anaerobic. Now, Eric, when it comes to that, and we set the idea of the religion itself aside, from a natural standpoint, doesn't that make you think that we had to have some type of intelligent design?
We did, and I believe that's where the aliens come in.
Mm-hmm. And it makes sense. It makes sense when you get right down to it.
But if anyone caught the alien race episodes we did, they heard that, in theory, there are 22 races, along with the Anunnaki, that Earth, and saw, I'm not sure if they were Neanderthal, but they were intelligence potential, I guess is the right word for that. And they manipulated DNA to basically create what we are today. Now, with that theory, they kind of looked around because they didn't want to stick around the planet. They seeded the planet. Well, the reptilians were here all along. They were already on Earth. And they kind of popped up. And now I don't have my notes in front of me. I'm just going off the top of my head.
Yeah, well, think about this for a minute. Like, you look at the old movies, for example, from the 40s and 50s, and people sounded different, people looked different, and some people say, well, it was the quality of the equipment of that time. It was the quality of the things they were using at that time. No, I mean, people even had a different dialect. You can look, and I'm not just talking from a style standpoint, you can look and you can see, Coop, that there's been an evolution of sorts, even in the past few decades, and in the way things are going. You know, like when you and I and the listeners, for example, we were kids, we were outside running around, climbing trees, and raising hell. But now kids these days are, brainiacs. They're more into their smartphones and the thirst for knowledge and looking and learning. And some kids do smart things with those smartphones, and other kids do some dumbass things with those smartphones. But the change in our thought process alone has led me to accept this theory that aliens may in fact be gods. And
it's very much true.
Well, you got to think. Okay, we have in Genesis, and this always confused me. For those of you, and I don't want to piss anybody off. I want to educate. We don't aim to piss you off. We aim to educate. But on TV, you hear about the big three. You hear about Judaism and Islam and Christianity. And those are aspects of the monotheistic religions. Another ones that a lot of people don't know about that predated all of them was Zoroastrianism. And beside that, if you really look at it from a technical standpoint, Christianity, in a way, is a polytheistic religion because you're worshiping God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. And it's like 3 plus 3 plus 3 equals 1. And I never got that. And I was a Christian all my life. I went to Islam. I saw what I thought were some truths there, but then I got really good at it and I retired. And I claim to believe that there's something there that created us. And a lot of people says, well, what's your faith? They try to put a label on it. They try to put a label on it, Coop. And I say, create a clay man. You see, you have your kid create a little clay man out of clay or Play-Doh or whatever. Now, while he's forming it in his image, they say God created in his image, or God's created their likeness, what have you. He creates arms and legs and a humanoid creature. Now, because that claymation figure cannot see the creator, does it mean that it does not have a creator? You need to think of that for a minute. But, go ahead.
Here's another perception. Who created my son? Who created my daughter? My mate and I did.
Mm-hmm.
They are in our image.
Exactly.
You know. And who created us? Well, for me, my mom and dad created me. No deity created me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in their image.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what image are we in? We're in, to me, my opinion, 22 different races of aliens, extraterrestrial, whichever you want to call them.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're aliens to them. Well, and that's true. But, so I'll rephrase that, because it's another label, extraterrestrial. And I put a lot more credence in that, because what is religion? Religion, to me, is controlling the masses. Religion was created to control people. And I don't want to go into politics, but in a sense, it is politics. Because look at our country right now, today. What they're trying to do is manipulate the government. And we actually have people in our government that are trying to abolish the Constitution by saying that the separation of church and state is unconstitutional.
Mm-hmm.
So, to me, it's hypocritical that they would look at the Islamic countries and say Islam is bad. It's a state-run religion.
Mm-hmm.
It is. The Middle Eastern countries are Islamic countries.
Mm-hmm.
Yet, in them, that's bad. But, in all essence, they call this a Christian nation. It's no different.
Exactly. And there's no problem with separation of church and state for them until you or I, for example, go to construct a statue of Baphomet on the White House lawn. But with that being said, I gotta say, you know, I've never heard of a pagan terrorist. I mean, you're not gonna run into a building and say, in the name of Morrigan, and explode, you know. But slightly.
And you know, and that's come up because like most of our listeners know, I just got done with my international domestic terrorism class, and I had one of the other students, because you know I've been posting. I have to do a certain amount of posts and whatnot. And I you know, one of the students is like, because I'm open. I don't care what people think. I'm pagan. If you don't like it, deal with it. But one of the students is like, you know what? I've never heard of a pagan that's created any kind of terrorism. I'm like, well, no, you won't. I mean, there's good and bad in every religion. There's extremism in every religion. There's extremist pagans. But, again, you won't see them building bombs. You won't see them blowing up buildings. You might occasionally see one shooting something up. You will see that. But,
yeah, we got some comments. Not trying to interrupt. We got some comments. Let's see here. We'll go from the top. Benjamin Pena says, and I'm scrolling through. That's what you guys are seeing in the camera. He says, all the gods are born and the aliens are fourth-dimensional beings from the multiverse. They are not from another planet the Pleiadians are from. And that very well could be true. And this is all in theory. And J.A. says, I think man created God to control females first. That was convincing enough that when they developed the sword, man could control and did control. Now, I could see that, I guess, because had you ever seen the movie with Denzel Washington, The Book of Eli?
Oh, I love that movie.
Yeah, and that's a good movie where the villain Carnegie, he wants the Bible in order to use it for control purposes. And when you look at the symbolism behind that, he's using it. Nick French says, "Hey buddy, hey Nick." And they asked us they can just barely hear you. Yeah, we're having some technical difficulties. I have him right up to the microphone, guys.
I got closer to the phone here. Let me bring something up. They're only basing that off the Bible. Now, you have the Mahabharata, which is an India text. You have the Quran. You have the Torah. You've got a whole series of different sacred texts. But everybody wants to point at just the Bible.
Yeah, you got to be fair.
And the Bible has so many inconsistencies and so many, what's the word?
Contradictions.
There you go, contradictions. That, and the Bible's not even fully, it's not even fully accurate in that not all the books are there. There's a whole lot of books that are, the Vatican wouldn't allow. And who's to say that in the Bible, in those hidden books that aren't there, it doesn't talk about aliens?
Well, I do have to say, as a former minister in Christianity, though, and then I went to Islam later, when Jesus is speaking to people, he tells them, I have sheep ye know not of. And, for example, in Islam, in the Quran, the contradiction that got me and a lot of the Muslims, I had the brainwash problem myself, and I read the Quran, and it says Allah or God is Ar-Rahman, which is all merciful. But then if it says, okay, if you do this, 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 and this, you're going to hell. Okay, so an all merciful being is sending me to hell. That doesn't make sense. Hey, I'm going to grant you mercy, and I'm going to send you to hell. It doesn't quite make sense. It doesn't add up. But in the prayer, when we used to pray, depending on Shia, Sunni, whatever, it acknowledged aliens. In the prayer, it acknowledges aliens. And I'll translate for you. It says, all praise is due to God, the Lord of the worlds, plural. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. All praise is due to God, Lord of the worlds. Now, okay, they're saying, when you take your declaration of faith and this, when you pay attention to this, Coop, and you listeners out there, you're going to hear that this is my basis for thinking that the alien races are at war for whatever reason, whether or not they want to control our DNA and have the exclusive rights to genetically modify us, or whether or not they want to save humanity, which I really doubt, because they have the technology to do so and nothing's happening. In the Shahada, when you become a Muslim, you say, there is no God worthy of worship except Allah. Now think of that. There is no God worthy of worship except Allah. Now when you break that down, you could say, well, that's acknowledging other gods. They're just not worthy of worship.
Right.
And you say,
but
go ahead.
It's no different than Christianity.
No, it's not.
God,
no, it's not.
The Bible says no other God but me.
Exactly.
So it's no different than Christianity.
But what it says in the Bible, it says, don't set other gods before me. That makes me think, okay, so you're saying there are other gods. Okay, why shouldn't I check them out? Why shouldn't I worship them? Why shouldn't I look at them? And in the Bible it says, your God is a jealous God. Now, okay, it says that, and we're led to believe, for example, the idea of monotheism. But then about when we have, the Nephilim coming down, it says in Genesis, the sons of God. Sons of God. Now, in our way of thinking throughout history, Coop, when it says like a son of God, you're thinking most notably, everybody starts to think of Jesus. Whether or not you believe, if it's trivia, it's like, okay, Coop and I are having paranormal trivia. And they say, son of God, who is Jesus for 500, please? Okay, alright, fine. Well, what about Horus, who was the son of Osiris, born to Isis, which was also a virgin? What about Zarathustra, which was born of...
There's over 10,000 different deities throughout history. And in reference to Joyce's comment, no one's saying Jesus didn't exist. Jesus did exist. That's documented. It's history. Was he God's son, or was he an actual alien? That's just something to think about.
I have a theory. Go ahead. You go ahead.
Some of the stuff that he did turning water to wine, and we see the same healings that he did done today. It's called energy healing. It's Reiki. It's the same concept. Anyone can do it. Anyone can be trained to do it. And it's no different what they did back then that's being done today. For no one's disputing the fact that Jesus probably did exist. Was he a God's son? And I say a God's son because for me, I'm polytheistic, meaning I have multiple deities I work with. But the fact is, where did religion come from? And is religion necessary? Not really. Spiritualism. Now there you go. Spiritualism and religion are two different things. Spiritualism meaning you can go out in the woods and talk to your deity. You can believe in your deity without having to go to a church or a mosque or a temple. Because those are nothing but buildings. They're made of wood. They burn. They're physical buildings. They are not a deity's house. And that's where you get controlled. You listen to one man sitting behind a pulpit telling you what to believe. That's called control.
Exactly. And when I was an adherent of Islam for 5 years, Coop, I never went to a mosque. Now, for one, they were, kind of far away from me. I live in a place where there's more cows than people. But I never went to a mosque. And, eventually what did it, because you and I had just started talking when I was in the process of leaving the faith. And I told you, I said, another brother at the time said, I have a problem with all these white people taking over our religion. Like, what, really? For one, I'm not entirely white. I mean, there's a little bit of a Jew trying to get out, too, but conflict of interest. And that's what did it for me. I just have to say, you have all these people who are fighting, and it seems to me that if you allow that within your ranks, you support it. And I can't allow that within my ranks. But here's my theory on Jesus, and I have to present this. This goes along with our topic. Now, when you think about the creation of Adam, how the breath of life was breathed into him, he was made from clay, and he was constructed, and then he was placed upon the earth. He named all the creatures and all the animals, but then God decided he shouldn't be alone. So what does God do? God knocks him out and takes a rib from him and forms a completely new human being. Now, for one, I say, okay, he got knocked out. That right there makes me think of a surgical procedure. 2, a rib was taken from him and a woman was created. He was cloned. Okay, now, he was following God until he was persuaded to bite that apple, right? Now, why would he be persuaded? I'm thinking that, and you ladies can go ahead and joke with this and roll with this here, because I'm thinking that when Eve was created from the rib, she was also modified genetically a little bit, obviously turned female, but she was also given the free will. And that free will is what allowed her to get him to eat that apple, and the serpent who joined in and got her to do it was a reptilian. My other theory behind that, Coop, is that when you look at all these movies, like what was that with Mark Wahlberg, The Martian? He lands on the planet, and he's stuck there. What's one thing everybody says, if you would go to Mars, what would you do? Oh, I'd try to cultivate. Oh, I would try to make new plants. I would see if I could breathe. I'd take my helmet off or do a scientific test and test the air. Well, the Garden of Eden, Coop, I believe, was a control in an experiment from whichever alien was our creator or aliens that were our creators. The Garden of Eden was the control, and the apple was showing us the type of food. And then it wasn't a punishment. It wasn't a punishment to make us go cultivate the food. It was an experiment to create the food. Now, what do you think about that?
Now, so the question is, folks, are aliens really gods? Now, if you look at history, and you were in Egypt, back in Egyptian days, and you saw a craft come down. Now, you might not think we're on topic, but in all reality we are, because even in the Bible, in Ezekiel's wheel, describes a UFO. You look at the Mahabharata, the India text, also describes UFOs and alien contact. So what we're bringing to you is the fact that there's actually aliens and UFOs in religious text. So, based on that, who came first, religion or aliens?
The chicken or the egg?
They're right. To me, aliens came first. Aliens created religious text.
I think they did it as a way to control us.
Right. And if you look at, again, if you were in Egypt and you saw a bright light coming down, aliens would be seen as gods.
And you know the first thing that comes to mind when you mention that is if you look back at our history when we liberated the Philippines from Imperial Japan, and Bob Davis brought this to my attention. When we liberated the Philippines, the U.S. Armed Forces from Imperial Japan, and they saw our planes flying over, and they saw our tech, and they saw everything that we had, and this is Earth-based. They were overjoyed, and then the little kids, they're building mystical-looking, they're airplanes, supposed to be airplanes, but for the first time someone seeing something like that, they built them in a kind of almost mystical fashion, just in the same way you'd seen how they found the little airplane model in the pyramids in Egypt. I don't know if you've studied the liberation of the Philippines, but that's something you guys ought to look at, is the way that we were depicted, the United States Armed Forces was depicted. And so I can see what you're getting at. It's like, I know this is a weird analogy, but if you remember the Ninja Turtles movie where they go back in time to feudal Japan, and there's a scene where they pull out a Walkman, and when the Walkman hits the ground, they think that it's witchcraft, and they all take their swords and start chopping the shit out of it. But when we talk about this, and we talk about the powers of Jesus being an alien, Coop, and there's many different races, so I have to ask you, before I go on with this theory, which alien race would be the most likely to come to Earth to try to do a healing type experiment or a genetic experiment? Because I mean, to me, in my research, the reptilians and the alpha draconians and whatnot, some of them are more of energy vampires, and some of them had even been known to eat human flesh.
The ones that were supposed to have been kind of like the leaders of the 22 races that seeded the planet were the Anunnaki. They are the ones you see today that fly triangular and pyramid-shaped craft. And like I said, I don't have my notes directly in front of me, but there's 22 races that were involved in the seeding. And then all of a sudden the reptilians popped up. The reptilians were already on this planet. And so the 22 races looked at the reptilians who just kind of materialized out of nowhere, who had been watching the whole thing. And they designated the reptilians as the overwatchers of this baby race, basically. And all left. Now, if you go back to S-4 and listen to the Alien Race series, we actually go into the 22 races. We actually go into which races have come back here to check on us, and which races, and actually, with some of them, we actually have the date for their last season. We also went into, where was I going with this? But the Anunnaki are the ones that are supposed to have been in charge. Now, if you also look at the Bible, they actually talk about the Nephilim. The Nephilim are also supposed to be a part of the alien overwatch. Now, with reptilians, however, they tried to manipulate the Egyptians. They actually took over the pharaohs at one point in time. And then some of the races that had seeded the planet realized, oh, well, the reptilians are here for dominance. They're here for taking over the planet. They're actually a bad race. That's actually when the alien wars started and still go on today. Most of these races today are still at war, and you see that. Some of it's dimensional, some of it's interdimensional, and some of it's you can actually see in the skies with some of the craft that you see. So what's your theory?
My theory is when it comes to the alien races, the Anunnaki and the Nephilim, they had the biggest influence. And there's a chart online that shows the height differences. Some people try to claim that they're one and the same. If you really do your research, there's differences. Now, like the Nephilim, for example, they disguise themselves as angels. And this is what, like, the Raelians have said, the Raelian religion that is based upon the idea that aliens actually brought religion to us. Now, Claudia made the comment that you could call God an alien in the sense that if we were saying God or gods, our supreme architect, for whatever reason, you could call him an alien because he isn't of the earth. Now, I'm sitting here thinking, and I'm going through the alien races, and I know you guys are pretty much familiar with all that. And I am to a degree. I'm not going to talk out my ass, so to speak. And I've done my homework. But what's more interesting than their influence itself is what I feel they've done. Because there are so many stories, like you have Jesus, who was supposedly a God's son. You have Horus, who was supposedly a God's son. You have Zarathustra, who was supposedly a God's son. And you have Heracles, more popularly known as Hercules, who is supposedly a God's son. Now, what I see when you put them in a Venn diagram and what they all have in common, aside from being born a virgin birth and being born of a mortal mother and a quote-unquote God as a father, an alien God, they were terminated after a certain point when they were here to do whatever it was they were to do. And I want you to think of the abduction cases that you're familiar with, guys and girls, because Coop, when you're shown, or when an abductee or an experiencer is shown their hybrid child, sometimes, as sad as this is, if their hybrid child did not turn out the way that the aliens had wanted, the hybrid child pregnancy or the hybrid child's life itself is terminated at a certain point, correct?
I'm really not familiar with that one. Now, with the hybrid program, back in the 90s, I know the first sign, and we'll go into that real quick. Back in the 90s, when the hybrid program was at its peak, the first sign a woman had been abducted and was part of the hybrid program, there would be a triangular set of puncture marks on the lower abdomen. That was the first sign. Second sign, they came up pregnant. Now, some of them were baffled because they had hysterectomies. They had, they couldn't be pregnant. Well, within, and I'm trying to remember, I'd have to look it up again because I always say this, but I think the gestation of the hybrid program was 4 to 6 weeks. And dreams are really important with this whole thing because they would actually dream the abduction. Dream of the abduction. And then the fetus would disappear. Now, it would baffle doctors because it wasn't aborted. There was no, leftover tissue. There were hormones that they had been pregnant, but there's no fetus there. And, I mean, these are some of these are documented cases. After the fetus was taken, so it had been re-abducted, the fetus was taken out, then they'd have dreams of being in an alien-type nursery where they saw fetuses in jars. And then later on, they were re-abducted and encouraged to hold these alien hybrids. Now, what you're seeing today, I've noticed, back in the 90s, the aliens actually had somewhat of a remorse. And remorse ain't the right word. They kind of sympathized. Whereas today, it's the hybrids doing the abduction. And they're a lot colder, a lot more systematic, a lot more, dictated. So the emotion seems to have been genetically taken out. Are they robot or, mechanized? Who knows? There's no telling, but that's the hybrid program. As far as them aborting or destroying any clones, I haven't heard of any cases.
He said, did you have Mr. Cooper on by cell? Can you move it closer to the mic? It is closer to the microphone. He's having a blizzard out there, so it's a pretty shitty connection. I actually have my good microphone. It is on right now. Okay, I'm having a little technical. Is Gail Hudson Shirk part of the group?
Say it again?
Gail Shirk. Can you link her? Can you link her in?
Say again.
Gail Hudson Shirk.
Oh, what about her?
Is she part of Forest Moon Paranormal Group? She's having trouble getting in.
Okay, hold on.
Okay,
I'm going to put you on speakerphone and see if I can if I'm being louder that way. And as far as the comment, there's a comment in the chat room real quick about aliens or Satans. You know what? Satan is actually a Christian. Satan is actually a religious connotation. Satan is only as real as your religion makes it. So, are aliens Satan? No. Aliens are aliens. Anyway, we won't even address that. We will move right along. Let's see.
I'm trying to get Gail in. Now, while that's going on, we apologize for the tech difficulties. Can I lower my mic volume then? Cooper's coming in clear, just very distant. Alright, just a second. Yep. It's very fuzzy on my end. I don't know if it has to do with this blizzard or not. But I can only do so. I can only do so much through the mixer. So.
Probably because of cell phone technology.
Okay. Well, we want to get Gail in here if we can. But there's a few things. What I'm getting at with Jesus and Horus and Zarathustra from Zoroastrianism is in studying the alien races and everything going on. Hey, Claudia, do you think maybe you could get Gail in here? That would be great. With all these sons of God, I often wonder if they were not an experiment to see what a human would do on Earth with their full potential. And perhaps, maybe, their human side of them. For example, Jesus, it would be really hard for his... Okay, she will go get her. Awesome, thank you. Jesus' understanding of alien life may very well... let's say he wasn't the Son of God, and I'm not trying to blaspheme anybody. Now, let's say you are an alien, for example, and Jesus is your experiment that you bring upon the earth. In that life, in that time, so very long ago, when they're not going to grasp the idea of an alien, and they're going to see an alien as a mystical being, and they're going to see it as a god to begin with, you would probably go ahead and tell them, look, you're the Son of God. You're going to explain it to them like that. You are the Son of God. Really? You're my experiment, and I'm putting you on Earth, and I'm giving you full clairvoyance, full clairaudience, full ESP ability. I'm unlocking your full supernatural potential and letting you use more than that 2% of your brain like everybody else on Earth. But I'm telling you that you're the Son of God, because in reality, you're a hybrid, and you cannot handle that. Wow. Okay, turn speaks up to hear Coop. Okay. There we go. Let's try that. Trippin's having some audio difficulty, apparently. I don't know. But anyway, as the alien, I'm telling Jesus that he is the Son of God, as opposed to telling him, you're an alien. Now, let's say he's here to do what he's supposed to do, which is use his alien influence to guide the religion. Okay? And then they're done with him. Now, think of the Romans, for example, as a government. In today's terms, the Romans as the government. The Roman Empire was huge. Now, if you were putting that in today's terms, the United States is the equivalent of the Roman Empire of back then with world influence, yes?
Mm-hmm.
The United States is a superpower, so the Roman Empire back then would have been the superpower. Now, perhaps one of them caught wind of the hybrid program, decided to crucify him before it got out what it really was. There's so much spin that you could put on this. There's so many ways that you could wrap your heads around this. But I mean, you have to look, really, there's a book, I can't think of the scientist right now, Coop, but I read the book before, and it's a picture of a globe, and it's got gray alien eyes in it. And Dr. Ellis, I can't think of the last name, but he said, okay, he had this idea that Earth was a prison planet. Have you heard this theory? The Earth was a prison planet, and that there were indications, for example, that we were not built to be on this planet. For example, developing bad backs and arthritis and other conditions were based upon the fact that our gravity on Earth is different from what our home planet would be, and that certain naturally occurring foods we couldn't tolerate. And the idea that we get sunburnt, whereas, I mean, unless there's an albino animal walking around, have you ever seen a dog that has been sunburnt, or a sparrow that's been sunburnt, or a monkey that's been sunburnt? Now, you see humans that are sunburnt. Every other creature on this earth has some type of biological adaptive means that they have evolved to protect themselves in our environment. So how come we can still get sunburnt? How come when we are in the water, we have nothing really to protect us from the water? And I'm not talking about drowning, but our skin. If we are in extended exposure for a long period of time, our nails fall off, our skin gets crinkly, our skin starts swelling with the water in between and starts sloughing off. We have those things happen to us. You have your camels who are adapted to the desert life. You have your penguins that are adapted to the polar climate. But humans, in just about any climate that we can be in, whether or not it's cold-ass New York, rainy Washington, sunny Florida where it gets hot, there's a hardship for us in each and every single climate. And this was his basis for believing that Earth was a prison planet for us and that we were alien in nature. Have you ever come across that theory?
No, I've heard of the prison planet, but that's from Alex Jones, not from Dr. Ellis. And all my internet's completely down again, so I can't even look up Dr. Ellis. But I'll look them up. Just send me a link later. I'll send you a reminder later.
Yeah, you definitely have to read. Let me go. I have my notes here. We're getting some extreme cold here too, so it's bothering things also. You'll see my lights going off and on in the video, and that's when I had my teleprompter stuff up. So I had Claudia try to get Gail in, but let me get in. Go ahead and you talk while I get these notes, boss.
And on that note, there's so many flaws with the human system. I mean, and you brought up the point that, yeah, we have bad backs, we have bad knees. If we were intelligent design, there's a lot of flaws with this system they call the human body. And basically, Corey brought it up perfectly. The human body is nothing more than a meat sack for the soul.
Mm-hmm.
And Corey's the one who said that today when we were at our case on the peninsula. But it's perfectly right. So if the soul, which we know is the key point to the human, because every soul's got personality, every soul's got the intelligence. Who's to say, and this is a theory I'm throwing out, that the soul is what makes the alien.
And that makes sense. Yeah.
Aliens actually have souls. Some people think they're demons because they're soulless. No, actually, aliens aren't demons. But who's to say some of the alien races don't? They actually have souls, and that's just what they... Because there are theories out there that some people are reincarnated from aliens. You can be alien races in past lives. That means your soul matrix can adapt from alien, from human, from whatever the hell else around. It's the meat sack that our soul gets stuck into as a human. That is flawed.
That makes perfect sense. And the first thing that comes to mind when you mention that is if you're familiar with the works of Rudyard Kipling. He wrote the famous story about the Jungle Book. He wrote a little a blurb, and it says, "They will come back again, as long as the red earth rolls." He never wasted a leaf of a tree, so why would he squander souls? Okay, he says, "Please push your mic away from you so we can turn our speakers up to hear Eric Cooper." My microphone is not near me. I'm actually about 5 feet away from my microphone, and Coop is a hell of a lot closer. So, I don't know exactly what to do about that one, boss. This was a last minute on the fly type thing. We figured it'd be better to have this than no program at all. My first week here, slight technical difficulties. I am going to be setting up a permanent audio system so that we don't have to deal with this for now. But in cold weather, cold snow, different things like that, this is what you have to battle. If you listen to Spaced Out Radio the other night, Dave actually had to run over to a friend's house because he had a power outage.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and folks, ideally we're getting into spring to where my internet will not be a damn issue. And I know the Spreaker Studio is weak, and it's a weak system. My internet can be running for Facebook or other things, but not for Spreaker Studio. It's a finicky system. I mean, Dave can tell you the same thing. So, again, next week we'll be covering a lot of the same stuff with the ancient alien theories. Now, if you want to jump the gun and get ahead of the game a little bit, look up Zechariah Sitchin. Look up the Earth Chronicles. It's a 12-book series of Zechariah Sitchin, and it goes into all the ancient theories. Also look up Eric Von Daniken. He wrote Chariots of the Gods, The Eye of the Sphinx. These are all books that are in my library. There's a lot of people that sit there and they ridicule Sitchin for his work. They ridicule Von Daniken for his work. If it goes against the mainstream, then it's got to be fringe. It's got to be bullshit. No, actually, it's not. And you know, again, if it takes the control away from the ones that want to control us, then they're going to fight. That's just the bottom line.
Now, Coop, what can you tell me about the Council of Nine?
Oh God, I've heard of the Council of Nine, but I really can't tell you a whole lot. I've heard of it. Actually, are you sure it's the Council of Nine or is it the Council of Five?
I had never heard of the Council of Five, but with the Council of Nine, if you looked at Gene Roddenberry and what he based his works on when he was writing Star Trek, he explained that he was in the synagogue and he saw the sign, Live Long and Prosper, that they used for Dr. Spock, and that he technically wasn't supposed to see them do that, and that's also used in certain forms of the Kabbalah. And if you look in a lot of the promotions for Star Trek and stuff like that, you'll see that they are 9 people in the picture. And then there's the cyborg 7 of 9. So there's like the significance of that. And they've always said, for example, okay, now our galaxy is big, our galaxy's huge, I get that. 9 planets, Pluto's debatable. It'll be a planet this year, it won't be a planet next year. But let's see, Trippin says, okay, hey there, Christopher, okay. But it makes you wonder exactly how many hands are in the pot. And I would like to believe that there is a different intergalactic being or a different intergalactic presence for each aspect of what we have going on. We look at the works, like you said, with Zechariah Sitchin and Eric Von Daniken, and how he went through the Bible, and he said, look, if you replace just 10 words and you change like from angel to alien and this and that, and you're opening up a whole different can of worms. And he goes into the book of Ezekiel and how Ezekiel sees the craft and the wheels that can go in any direction. And they bring him up, and he's measuring the buildings and stuff like that, and it's really not clear to him why he's doing all of this. And it seems to me that Ezekiel himself, at that point, knows that it's not necessarily God that he's dealing with. And so he's taken aback by that. But there's so many different... You have to weigh the experiences of people. Like, for example, you say that maybe there aren't really any good aliens out there. And then some people report that they are having good or serene experiences. And I'm wondering if those are indeed screen memories for something more sinister. Because I see DNA manipulation. I see experimentation, and it goes way beyond just the aliens. Like I know in the future we're going to get into the deal that Eisenhower supposedly made with aliens in exchange for tech, in exchange for humans to experiment on. And then you look at the junk that's put in our food these days, Coop. It's not a matter of if you'll get cancer anymore, but when. So I'm wondering if these beings are in fact pushing the threshold to try to use us as an experiment to see what our bodies can handle. The same way we have mice in a maze testing stuff on them so that we don't get cancer from the household chemicals.
Okay, well, let me answer your question about the Council of 9 real quick. It actually now is the Council of 5. It used to be the Council of 9. There are 5 races, and you can look them up. The Orela, the Egorot, the Jinvo, the Raiden, and the Emerker. Let's talk about the 5 races, although the Emerker are the most important race, not just to the Council, but to all races. They are related to the Slipsy Ray. Now, the Slipsy Ray, there are 16 subspecies of the gray. They're all bad. They're all malevolent. They're all slave races for reptilians. The Slipsy Ray is a benevolent gray race. They don't come here. They stay on their own planet. But much older and more advanced are the Slipsy Ray. They're older than the other 16 subspecies of gray. They were instrumental in founding the Council. They met with President Eisenhower on 3 different occasions and also met with 2 high-ranking USSR leaders on 3 different occasions. They tried to meet with President Nixon, but he refused. This council used to be the Council of 9. They have been protecting Earth humans for as long as there have been records for millions of years. The council last met on Earth in 1944. So what's also noted is they have been watching the evolution of mankind ever since the Anunnaki, which the Anunnaki are the ones who tampered with DNA. Now, they've been protecting us because they see humans joining the alien races with enlightenment and development. That's what I've got on the Council of 9, which actually now is Council of 5 because I believe 4 races turned on the actual council when we're dropped.
Now, Trippin's talking about, and that's the point that I was making, Trippin. I'm not trying to disregard what you're saying, but I'm wondering if the aliens are having a hand in what is being fed to us genetically and systematically in an attempt to see what they can put our bodies through and perhaps weed out our genetic weaknesses for the hybridization program. And it goes hand in hand, Coop, because you look at your different religions and your dietary restrictions. Like the Muslims and the Jews don't eat the pork. Okay, well, the blood work, the triglycerides, the whole CBC, complete blood count, is going to be different from someone who consumes bacon and sausage and ham and eggs 4 or 5 days out of the week. And then you have the Hindus, for example, who they don't touch cow. You have your vegans for whatever reason. I don't know if there is a religion that is there for vegans, but you take all the different people. Your religions are rules that make you abstain from a certain behavior, and they make you adhere to a certain behavior. And yes, it's dark in here like that on purpose, guys and girls. If you've never seen The Quickening or anything like that before, I do black and white. That's my thing. It always has been. But it's like, okay, you take... When I was in Islam and I hadn't had pork for 5 long years, the buffering, that's not my fault. That's beyond my control. But
you were bacon free. Oh my God, I was bad for you.
I was bacon free. I was pork free. I all of that, free for 5 years. I didn't touch it. That was, at that point in my life, I felt like that's what I was supposed to do. And then I just said, hell with it. I went all out. And let me tell you, if this were an experiment to keep it from me for that many years or whatever, and someone's looking down upon me, it's like Ghostbusters 2, let's see what happens when we take away the puppy. Okay, well, I dive into the bacon. I dive into the sausage. And man, oh man, as good as it was to bite into that crispy, wonderful bacon, I paid for it. I was flying that porcelain spaceship, brother. And
let me put something up the trip real quick. I've never done a study on this, but I'm wondering how many other countries have as high a cancer rate as the United States. Because I think cancer was created, to be honest with you, just like the flu.
Definitely.
I think the flu was created by the government. And now I don't have much info on that on. But if you look at, again, the human body, you look at the GMO factor and the cloning factor of our food. I think that's where, and I know there's cancer, a long time ago, long before GMO, but was there really? How long has GMO really been around? How long are they living on food? So if you wanted to do a study, I'd be interested in what you would find as far as statistics of cancers. And of course, it depends on which cancer.
Now, when you're talking about that, too, in the cancers and the GMO foods, I knew someone who worked in Walmart before, and he was in my marketing class when I was in college. And he said what they do with their pallets is they will stack the organic food with the inorganic food, with the modified food, and you don't know the difference. You may pay that extra $1.50 for the organic tomatoes when you're really getting the ones with pesticide, and you don't know. But if you were hybridizing for the purpose of taking over a planet, and you were little by little introducing your DNA into theirs, wouldn't you want to test every consumable item on that planet to ensure that there isn't something that's going to completely wipe them out? You keep in mind that your hybrid, they say, like your first kid is like a brand new car. You love it, you're happy, you're excited, but you want to see how fast they go, but they're going to get some dents in it. And so perhaps with our life cycle and the flus that are created, the vaccinations, and that's debatable, but I'm saying what if, hypothetically, if these things are all going on, Coop, then we are throwaways. We are play clothes. If we're a meat sack for the soul that continues, and they know that they can kill Coop off, and they can kill me off, and they can kill these guys off, and that we're just going to inhabit another meat sack, perhaps they're going to say, okay, we're going to strengthen the spine, maybe enlarge the spleen a little bit, make the liver a little stronger, because those bananas, man, they're really doing a number on the colons. And so they're trying to weed out all these imperfections so that the aliens themselves can successfully, after their hybridization experiment is over, they can successfully inhabit this planet. And the pollutions that are allowed, and if you look in the news, they're talking about getting rid of the EPA. The pollutions that are allowed, Coop, are also a way to see, okay, how much smoke will kill them, how much smog will kill them, the water in Flint, Michigan, how much of that will it take before they start dying off? And that's one big giant experiment that we just think are day-to-day problems.
Well, here's the thing, though. You got to think a much broader picture because you're talking there's 160 different races. So not all of them are here to manipulate. Not all of them are here to dominate. So and you're talking a global issue. So on this. I've talked to spirits before, and when you die, when you move on, and you pass over, you basically have some options. And I've talked to spirits that they didn't want to pass on. They didn't want to go to the light. They didn't want to pass over. They were having fun here. And that's their option. So, if you do cross over, you can go and, move around to be a serial, or you can get in line. And by getting in line, you get in line to be reborn. Now, do you get reborn as a human? You get reborn as an alien? I mean, there's no telling. You don't have a choice, really, of what you're going to be reborn as. So if they were going to be reborn into a stronger meat sack, they wouldn't know.
I guess that makes sense. Now, in all this topics, when we're talking about did religion come from the aliens, religion itself is such an alien concept to us as it is because we can't quite wrap our heads around it. And that's why there is all the fighting. Claudia has a comment. She says, when all is broken down to atoms and molecules, what creates the picture we see? Does our brain... Why is it not showing the whole comment? Are you seeing the whole... I'm trying to see the whole comment from Claudia. And it's not really showing up for me, the whole thing. I don't know why. But, I don't know. Religion is such a big thing. Okay, do you have Cooper on a cell? Yes, I do have Cooper on a cell. He's not on Skype. Skype was hardly connecting. I have him on cell right now. Okay. Does our brain see things like a hologram? You never know. I mean, you'd have to define reality. You would have to define reality then, because there's even the notion that we are part of a computer matrix. And that's a whole different, completely topic for another show, I'd say, wouldn't you, Coop?
Yeah. Now, if you look through your third eye, you might see through hologram. Now, cats and dogs can actually see third and fourth dimension. You know, even with our astral team. And it was on Space Radio when we were on with the astral team. Yeah, there have been cases where our astral team has gone into a client's house and we're followed around by cats and dogs. And that's why certain cats and dogs can also follow, you know, they see spirits. They see aliens. I had a dog that, while I was having a copper case to my mouth, was actually following something around the ceiling. Spirits don't give you a copper case to your mouth. Aliens do. That's an alien sign, more or less.
Oh, trippin', there's no doubt that religion came as a means to control the masses. Now, Coop says, you know, and I have to agree, there's a big difference between being spiritual and being religious. Because religious, you can be spiritual, put cell close, the cell is as close to the microphone as it's allowed there, boss. It's as close as it is. The signal is wavering. It's going in and out. I'm dealing with extremely negative temperatures here on my end, too. Coop's dealing with a blizzard. We're feeding the audio the best we can. Just the same, I'd almost say that it still sounds better than terrestrial radio in the 90s. But what I have to say is, damn it, I'm off track. Good God, or gods. There's a big difference between spiritualism and being religious, because, you know, if you're religious, again, you're tied to a routine, you're tied to a mindset. I mean, spiritually, go outside when it's nice and sit in the middle of the woods, you know, whether or not it's on a blanket or whether or not you like the feeling of the grass, you know, against your legs or whatever, and sit down and close your eyes and relax and don't think about anything. Don't bring your cell phone with you. Don't bring a pager with you. Don't bring a camera with you. Don't bring anything with you except what you absolutely have to have. And you close your eyes and listen to nature. You listen to those birds. You listen to the animals. That is a spiritual connection to this earth. Wouldn't you agree, Coop?
Oh, most definitely. And talking about energy, and the grass under your feet. Let's talk about grounding for a second, because you pick up so much negative energy in your day-to-day life that if you go out and ground, and a proper grounding means you go out, you grab a tree, and you close your eyes, and you picture all the energy from the top of your head flowing out your body and down to the bottom of your feet into the earth. That is a grounding. That gets rid of the negativity out of your body, the negative energy that you've accumulated over the day, over the week. And yeah, spiritualism is what more and more people are going to. They're getting away from the church. They're getting away from organized religion because all that is control. And I think it was controlled. I think it was created personally by the 1% or aliens, whichever theory you want to go with, to control the population. And by 1%, I'm talking about the corrupt media, the corrupt corporations, the corrupt government. They got to control the masses. They got to keep people working from 9 to 5 because they got to have that dollar to survive. If we went back to the barter system and got away from the 9 to 5, that would take the monetary aspect away. and then get away from the organized religion, and you'll be a free person. And away from the control. Now, the easiest way to dominate the planet is to create slaves. And I think organized religion and monetary, you take away from the world banks, you take away the control. That's what they don't want.
Now, Claudia's talking about, she had a question here. Let me scroll up a minute. She asked, when all is broken down to atoms and molecules, what exactly do we see?
Can you rephrase that?
When all is broken down to atoms and molecules, when we get down to that molecular level, what do we see?
I'm not a scientist. That'd be a good question for Marco.
It would be. I'm about 2.5 years behind him in the bachelor department there, getting my bachelor's in a science degree. I'd have to answer that the best I can. Is our world and the matter that exists within it is occupied by those molecules and atoms. And it's my belief, I'm not saying that it's fact, but it's my belief that the space between is what the paranormal occupies, and that's our fourth and fifth dimensions, in which you said our dogs and our cats can see. If you'd ever read some of Whitley Strieber's books, he was talking about how the aliens, or the visitors as he called them, took him out into the woods, and they lured him out into the woods, and he's looking up at the sky, and they told him to tilt his head a certain way, and when he would tilt his head a certain way, he was able to see that there was a ship and stuff there, and different anomalies in the sky. And then they told him, look this way. They're telling him to turn his head certain directions, and he's seeing different things based upon how he's turning his head. Now, Claudia says, a sweat lodge is a humble church. You sit on the dirt and have water pour on hot lava rocks. It's pitch black in there. Have you ever heard of the sweat lodge?
Oh, yeah. I've heard of sweat lodges.
I haven't, actually.
That's natives, very much Native American.
That's something I'd be interested in. Spiritualism, though, you can be spiritual, and you can have your faith or your understanding deep in whatever it is you believe. And, there's the law of belief. What's that say? To thine own self be true. At the end of the day, spiritually, it does come to your business. But when I look at the religious aspect, it's like I had a talk with you. I was thinking about the best way to describe religion. And religion, to me, not faith, not being a good person. I'm not talking about that. You either are a good person or not. And I don't care if you're a Christian. I don't care if you're a Satanist. I don't care if you're a nihilist, whatever. If you're a good person, you're a good person. And if you're an ass, you're an ass. And that doesn't matter what label you consider yourself to be. But when I look at religion itself, it's like, I brought my dinosaur who eats force field dogs. That's what it is. It's, mine's better than yours. I brought my attack dog with a built-in force field. Coop says I got my dinosaur who eats force field dogs. And there goes the religious argument. And it's a matter of control. And those who sold the idea that force field dog is good for me, and those who sold the idea that dinosaur is good for you, they're sitting back laughing. Just like you have these fanatics in the other countries who, even our leaders, like, you had Bush and you had Obama, and now you got Trump, and you have Putin and Russia and Kim Jong, whatever the hell his name is. They're all running their mouth. They're all standing in front of the camera, running their mouth, and they're telling people, look, basically, if you piss me off, I'm sending my military after you. Now, if Coop and I are neighbors and we're Hatfields and McCoys and we're feuding, and, Coop's Pa Cooper and I'm Pa Kinsey, we're not going to sit there and say, I'm sending Jedediah over the fence after you. Coop and I are going at each other. But you have these world leaders. They live to fight another day because they have millions upon millions of replaceable people to fight for them. And I have a deep respect for any military, for anybody who serves. To me, they are not the political problem. But they are sent to war because of control purposes. Now, I know damn well that if shit hit the fan here on U.S. soil, Coop would be right there to try to defend our country. I know that. But when we're sent to another country to kill off the scary brown people to fill up gas tanks, that's exactly what it is. It's like you said when you were over doing your tour, you ran into some of the Muslims there and stuff who were kinder than some of the people on our own soil.
Yep.
And it's like when I majored in Civil War history in college for a while, you had the Confederates and the Union soldiers after battles, a lot of them who really didn't want to fight. They're playing cards and trading stuff, and they're sharing memoirs of their women and all these things and that. And generally as humans, we just want to live. We just want to survive and thrive. It's those above us, whether or not they are foreign or domestic, that are controlling us. And the religious implication had to come from something alien. Because within, you think, okay, for example, the idea of Christmas. Commercially, okay, Coop says, when Homo sapien quit following the herds and picking wild nuts, veggies, and fruits, and started farming. Yep. He's absolutely right on that, because our bodies tripping bingo. Our bodies weren't meant to eat the grains and things like that. Religion actually started when we stopped being hunter-gatherers, Coop. Think about that.
Uh-huh.
When we stopped being hunter-gatherers. And, damn, tripping just owned the night right there. Trippin', I think you answered the question. Whatever it was that stopped us from being hunter-gatherers, man. Time is speeding up. All ages agree to this. Yeah, I wonder what's causing... Yeah. Doesn't it seem like time is flying? Go ahead.
You got to remember, back when we were hunters and gatherers, we were also doing the bartering system.
Mm-hmm.
It was the same era. There was no monetary. It was, hey, I'm a blacksmith. I'll put a shoe on your horses. I'll make you swords. You feed me. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Maybe the religious... Yeah. Therein lies the answer. Maybe the influence to do what we did, maybe the aliens' influence was only the catalyst to make us do that.
Or something else to think about, the aliens made the hunter-gatherer, but it's the human aspect, the government control, that wanted to take it away from the aliens who were creating a good planet, and they may control or take it away from the alien planet, which was actually a benevolent plan. Just some food for thought to throw out there.
Yeah, and Claudia says it seems that time is speeding up. I know, it's
I can see that.
Yeah, it's like, I think it too, really. I mean, I know something happens and something goes by. But, I mean, I was sitting here talking to the missus. It's like, damn, we've been together 13 years already. Where'd the time go? 6 years. 6 years until my son is old enough to be drafted in the military.
And it seems like you say that every year.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. Look, you just flew on by. I mean, look where we're at right now. We're already in March. And it's still snowing. We were just talking about that today.
Yeah.
I remember it didn't snow much last year. We got maybe a couple inches the entire winter. This year we've had more snow. I mean, it's snowing right now. I've had my Explorer for about 3-4 years now. I've never used 4-wheel drive until this year.
Wow.
It's been a God and godsend for damn sure. So, what's everyone's perception? Did aliens create religion, or did man create religion to get away from aliens?
What do you guys think?
You still got religions today. I'm talking like people went to church today. It was Sunday.
Mm.
And so you got men sitting on the right and women sitting on the left. That's how control some of these people get. You've got churches that they aren't allowed to have TV. Not churches. Also, you've got religions that you're not allowed to have TV because TV is corrupt. I can get on board with that as a human. I don't need religion to tell me that. Because I see the media is corrupt. We have a TV, naturally. But we don't have cable. We don't need cable. I don't watch TV. I don't need TV. I have no desire to watch it. I just get angry watching the news.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, are you aware that China just raised their military budget by 7%?
Nope.
I got that off Facebook, off my own local news channel on Facebook. So what's China up to? Now, folks, if you want to watch a good movie, watch The Arrival. I just watched it for the first time yesterday. And if you're after an alien invasion, Rambo, shoot 'em up.
Yeah, you're not going to get that.
Don't watch The Arrival. The Arrival is very deep. It's very slow, but it's got a point to it. So if you want to watch a slow alien movie, it's got some, something to make you think. Watch The Arrival. I liked it. We know there's good races, but there's way more bad races of alien out there. Many of them are at war with each other. Some of them want the resources of the planet. Some of them want us as slave races, or slave labor, whatever the hell. And in order to dominate this planet, they also have to lower the population. And by doing that, they control it.
Mm-hmm. No. I'm not going to spoil anything on The Arrival. honestly, myself, I had mixed reviews. I'm not gonna give any spoilers, Coop. I'll talk to you about it after the program or some other time. But the idea behind it was different because you weren't getting, the alien hiding behind the closet trying to give you a screen memory or something like that. But J.A. said it the best just now. She said, I am a spiritual being having a physical experience. Trippin says, follow the pipeline, follow where the battles are, greed over black, God is what is causing these so-called wars. And yeah, it's exactly religion, and I'm not crapping on anybody who is religious, but religion is the cause of a lot of war. That can't be denied. It's like even way back the history of when Muhammad died, they had the Sunnis and the Shias. They started, I don't even think Muhammad was cold before they started fighting. And there's disputes over where certain companions of his are buried, and the Shias will say no, Bilal is buried here, and then the Sunnis will say no, Bilal is buried here. And then there's even, everybody has their spin on things, and what they don't realize is, everybody's looking at them like, hey, you guys don't know fucking Kamir from Sikkim. You don't know where you buried this guy, do you? You don't know where he is. It's like Elvis is not under his gravestone in Graceland because they're afraid of people robbing that. So they don't know where they buried this guy. They claim spiritual superiority over one or the other, and then nobody can take them seriously. And then all these people have to wonder why atheists and haters are like they are. Because the big three religions who claim to be the most peaceful, sadly, and if you're watching the news, you gotta see it, or if you're listening to the radio, you gotta see it, but they're also the ones doing the most killing. And that's no lie. And
for those that don't understand, the Sunni and the Shiite are the two main Islamic belief systems. Much like, so you have the Sunni and the Shiite that are going to war with each other. It'd be kind of like the Baptists and the Lutherans and the Catholics going to war.
Yes.
With each other.
Yes.
And it's an easy thing to put it. Because some people, you say Sunni and Shiite, and then of course you got the Kurds. Which are constant as well. But
they think they're tribes, like a race.
They're different sects of Islam.
And the funny thing is they claim to both follow the Quran, but then they both really don't, because they follow these. Some of them say that Muhammad said this, other ones say that Muhammad said this. Well, what they did was they took advantage of Muhammad's supposed honesty, and it's not like, okay, I knew a guy who knew a guy who knew a guy who knew Muhammad, and he said this, and then they're like, no. I knew a guy who knew a guy who knew a guy who knew Muhammad, who also knew a guy who said he said it this way. You're wrong. No, you're wrong. No. Got my attack dog with a force field. Got my dinosaur who eats force field dogs. Allahu Akbar. Now everybody's dead.
And it's just like the Lutherans, the Baptists, the Methodists all have their very own interpretation of what the Bible says. Same thing.
And as long as that's there, we're going to keep having these discussions. Long after we're dead, there's going to be someone else who's going to bring this topic up. They're not even going to know we existed. So what we got to do in this genre, Coop, is we got to figure out how to etch this into people's minds.
Well, believe what you believe. Do you believe in a supreme being then you're probably a spiritualist. You have to go to a building. You know, and the other thing I want to bring up is you can always tell how corrupt an organized religion is by how, what can I call that pastor or preacher or reverend drives.
Joel Osteen.
But when I was in the Army, you know, I was only pegging in my section. But I was always laughed because I was hearing the Christian soldiers bickering back and forth over what church you went. And there's a Reverend Dollar, I think his name is, in Atlanta, Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
That whole his church, they had to take their LES, which is their leave and earnings statement, to show you how much they made each month. So that he made sure he got God's 10%.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if that ain't corrupt, I don't know what corruption is. And this is a reverend. This is a reverend that's working, drives a Mercedes. Really? So, God made you a reverend so you could drive a Mercedes around?
Oh, it's just like in Islam. When I was watching, there was a fella, I've shown some of his videos before. His name was Mufti Ismail Menk, and he's from Zimbabwe. And what a mufti is in Islam is they are higher up as far as a scholar. See, the Muslims try to say, well, we don't have an established church. No, you just have ranks you give people. Oh, you better listen to that guy, he's a scholar. Oh, you better listen to that guy, he's a sheikh. Oh, you better listen to that guy because he's a mufti. Big whoop. Well, what this guy did is, you know, they're describing, we had Khalil Ismail, or Khalil Yassin, and he's talking about how nobody knew which man in the crowd was Muhammad because he dressed like everybody else. And this guy's at the head of the room saying, Muhammad dressed like everybody else. And when he walked into a room, or when someone walked into a room and they didn't know he was there, they'd say, where is Muhammad? Who is he? Who is he? All the while he's saying this, he has his beard dyed in a reddish color. He has big gold necklace around his neck. He has designer glasses on, a nice big silver ring, and some of these other guys, they have gold-lined robes, and they're telling us that, okay, Muhammad dressed like a beggar, and he ate like a beggar, even when he was the absolute ruler of Mecca, and he slept on palm fibers, and they said, oh, you should be a king, you should, you know, be on a throne, you should have people serving you, and he said, no, I'm humble, I've been given what I've been given, and they've been given what they've been given. But the person who's telling this story, Coop, is in a gold-lined robe with as much bling as a rapper. That's the problem.
Indeed.
And that's that's enough to gag a maggot.
We have about 10 minutes to wrap this up. Actually, over those that. So bottom line, do your own research. Look up the 22 races that seeded this planet. Headed up by the end, and make sure you listen to Ancient Aliens next week, because we'll kind of be paralleling what we're talking about tonight. Again, Zechariah Sitchin and Eric Von Daniken, and the even role of Jean Palais. Jean Palais is another good one. But, you know, and there's a lot of, well, since we're talking religion, you got the Muppets. You've got, what was the other one we were talking about earlier? The other alien religion.
Raelism.
Yeah, the Raelians. You've got plenty of religions out there. Look at Heaven's Gate. You got to be really careful about who you follow.
Oh, yeah.
Heaven's Gate, for those that don't know, I'm sure most of you know, but Heaven's Gate was a UFO cult that they believe that have them following the Haley Bob, which was a comet back in 1997. Now, you know what? It's funny because, I've been doing ufology and alien abduction work since 1994. In 1997, I was in a rehab facility in the Army in Rostow, Germany. And in 1997, the morning that they found Heaven's Gate, they committed suicide because they were going to go, jump into the spaceship down here and pop. It's kind of funny. It's not. But the psychiatrist pulled me into her office. She's like, I know you're a ufologist, and I know you're a daily abduction, and you do, intense research. She said, you're not suicidal, are you? I'm like, no. Why would I be? I'm not in Heaven's Gate. I don't believe there's a UFO following that comet. No, I work on real world shit, not fantasy. Okay. And she laughed. And then we started actually talking about UFOs. She's like, when I was younger, she actually had a green independent laser light. Like there was no beginning, no end. It actually came across her field, came up and over the fence, and in her window, stopped, and then crossed her house. So this is a psychiatrist that actually believed in UFOs. But yeah, the point of the story is religion as an organization, or organized religion, does not belong in politics. That's where it controls you. That's what controls governments. That's why our Constitution created a separation of church and state. It's called the Establishment Clause. And our founding fathers created that for a reason, because this is not a one religion country. This is a country with freedom of religion, or freedom from religion, whichever you want to take. And I think our founding fathers being, what we're looking for, being Knights Templar, being Masons, there's supposed to be an alien tie-in with the Masons. We haven't found that yet, but that's another theory that's running amok out there. And who's to say that they didn't know that the aliens created religion? And that's why they didn't want a one-country religion.
That makes sense. I know we're winding down in just a second, but you just brought me to the attention. There's this TV show called The Colony. Now, I don't know if you've heard of it or not, but these aliens come to Earth and they take over for whatever reason. I've only watched the first season, so it's not really known why they take over. But they appoint only certain members of the human race as their representative on Earth. And this human basically tells them, look, they are here, they control you, they control me, and you can either do things this set way, how you are told to do it, or you can not comply, and it's going to screw me, and it's going to screw you. So I'm going to give you the choice, and the ball's in your court, run with it. And that's basically the premise of the show. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but I'd urge you guys to check it out.
Well, and that goes for, and that brings up the point that most alien movies, most UFO movies, most TV shows, they have an ounce of truth to them. So you look at The Fifth Element, you look at, oh God, what other one? There's a whole slew of alien movies out there that all have some basic philosophy to them. And like I said earlier in the show, in the beginning, watch Stigmata. It would be one of the most unexpected movies that you could take away from, but Sigmar actually is based on the Hidden Books of Thomas. And the Hidden Books of Thomas, which was never included in the Bible because, well, it says, word for word, that, God is not in a building. God is in the rocks. God is in the trees. God is all around you. Not in a building. It just, I shake my head. I shake my head at the extremism, the radicalization. And like I said, I bring a lot of this from the school I'm going to and the course that I'm taking. I've only taken political science, which went heavy into the Constitution. I've already taken domestic international terrorism, which went heavily into religious terrorism, which, and it's funny. So I wrote a 5-page paper on security versus freedom.
Mm-hmm.
My professor, and I'm not tooting my own horn, because, I'm nervous about school because I ain't been to school since 1987. But my professor actually said my paper was actually one of the best papers he's read since he's been a professor in Kaiser University. And I was surprised by that. I did a lot of research for that paper. But, and my view, and I believe is a minority, but I'm going to say it like this. Muslims are not your enemy. Religion, extremism is your enemy. There is just as much conservative extremism in this country you need to worry about, if not more, than there is Muslim extremism. Because they don't look at the old white conservative guy that's walking around with a gun, that's going to shoot up a mosque, or shoot up a Planned Parenthood. They're looking at the brown-skinned guy, who's not even Muslim. He might be a Christian, but he's a brown-skinned guy. And talk about, I just shake my head at this country sometimes. Anyway, you got any final thoughts there, Seth?
My final thought is what we really need to get down to is being good to one another. And that's something that shouldn't be an alien concept. But sadly, in this day and age, it seems to be an alien concept. And if y'all are here, or you're listening to Spaced Out Radio, or you're just hanging out in the Forest Moon Paranormal Group, or Forest Moon Grove, or if you hit me up on Facebook, or Coop, or anybody in our clique, so to speak, if you're doing that, then you are part of the solution, because you're part of a group of people who still have the capacity to think, and to think for yourself. And don't let that slip away from you, because in a world where you are told what to eat, what to think, what to wear, what to watch, you're even told who your heroes ought to be. Oh, you ought to root for the Patriots because they're the Super Bowl champs. Oh, you ought to, John Wayne, badass actor, you ought to idolize him. When you're told all these things that you should be and should do, the only thing that you have left is your ability to think and rationalize. And I'm begging you all to not give that up. Do not give whatever you call them, whether or not they're the Illuminati, whether or not they are just the government, the Masons, whatever hidden hand, hidden secret agenda organization you can think of that you feel is responsible Do not give them the satisfaction of relinquishing your thoughts. And yes, extremists are what we have to worry about. But I'll tell you right now, I am an extremist. I am extremely caring. I am extremely loving. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, don't stop believing, and good night.
We'll see you next week. Have a good night, folks.